He walked into the boutique like he owned the block. Crisp shoes, a smug smile, sunglasses on even inside. The kind of guy who assumes respect arrives with his credit card. Store security watched him with the same polite distance businesses keep for people who look out of place. Then Malik stepped in. He wasn't loud. He wasn't flashy. He moved like someone who'd spent his life used to being underestimated, calm, measured, a coat folded over his arm. He browsed for a minute, checked a watch band, nodded politely to the assistant who approached. That should have been the end of it. But the security guard decided to make it a scene. "You can't be in here like that," he said, voice sharp. "You need to leave." Malik blinked, surprised. "Sir, I'm looking." He reached for the watch again. The guard's tone hardened. "This is private property. We don't serve people like you here." The words landed like a slap. A woman nearby gasped. Phone shifted. The room went small. Malik didn't explode. He didn't raise his voice. He folded the watch back into its case and said, quietly, "I'll go." He stepped toward the door. The guard stepped in front of him like a little man trying to look large. "Not so fast. You'll leave now." A crowd gathered, because injustice always attracts an audience. The guard put a hand on Malik's shoulder, not gentle. The world, in that moment, held its breath. Here's the thing about Malik. He looked ordinary on purpose. Nobody who passed him on the street knew the truth. He was the kind of person who moved through doors people claimed were closed. He ran companies that moved markets. He owned buildings that had skylines named after them. He handled money that made politicians nervous. He had power most people only read about in headlines. He could make phone calls that would cost a man his job, his reputation, his calm life, in a heartbeat. But he didn't react like a headline. He didn't call his lawyers while the crowd watched. He didn't make threats or show off. Instead, he took a breath, turned to the guard, and said one sentence that would matter long after the push and shove. "You're better than this." Then he walked out. People in the store whispered. Phones recorded. The guard's face was a mixture of triumph and confusion. He had what he thought was control until he realized he'd been shown something he couldn't name. He'd expected anger, a fight, an apology that would be wrestled out of Malik. Instead, he got something heavier, dignity. Outside, Malik stood on the sidewalk and waited. He didn't pace. He didn't call anyone. He simply waited because he knew how these things worked. Time would stretch, someone would call the owner, the video would spread, and then, if someone wanted to, they could make a phone call and end a life that wasn't theirs to take. Malik had that power, and more. He could have demolished that man's career quietly. He could have used his reach to create problems that never end, to show the one who'd humiliated him that the world does not forget. But what Malik wanted wasn't vengeance. He wanted an example. He wanted the world to see what that kind of attitude did, how it looked when a person decided who belonged somewhere based on skin and shoes. So he stayed calm. He waited. Minutes later, a sleek car pulled up. The store manager stepped out, polite, confused, the kind of person who wanted to fix things with a smile. Malik explained plainly what had happened. The manager apologized, offered a refund, offered a private meeting, and promised corrective action. Malik nodded, but then he did something unexpected. He asked to speak to the security guard alone. They stepped into the back room, away from the phones and the flash. The guard stiffened, because most private conversations with the wealthy feel like threats or bribery. Malik didn't reach for his wallet or his phone. He looked at the guard and spoke in a low, steady voice. "You are better than the choices you make when you're trying to look powerful," he said. "You don't have to prove anything by pushing people out. You can choose to protect the place and the people in it. That's strength." The guard tried to recite rules, company policy, store image, safety concerns. Malik listened. He didn't interrupt. Then he told one short story about a time someone had held the door open for him when the world assumed he didn't belong. He described how that one small act had changed his day, his confidence, his future. The guard's jaw loosened. For the first time, the guard didn't have a script that fit the moment. When they came back out, Malik didn't make a scene. He shook the manager's hand, left a business card, and walked away into the city. His car didn't pull a block away. He walked, blending into the crowd the way he always did. But the video of the moment had already gone viral. The shot where the guard pushes, "Malik doesn't fight." The words, "You're better than this," echoing under the roar of phone notifications. What happened after is the part people notice and then forget the lesson of. The guard was suspended pending review. He lost his job. The company said it was a policy decision. Some called for harsher punishment. Some argued Malik should have used his power to destroy the guard's life. But Malik had bigger reasons than punishment. He met with the store owner and said, "Train your staff. Teach them to de-escalate. Don't make dignity optional for certain customers." He then funded a small community program to train security staff in empathy and conflict resolution, and he made sure the guard could enroll without stigma. A week later, the guard sent Malik a message. It was short. "Thank you. I was wrong." Malik replied, "Do better." That was it. No low sought. No vengeance. A small, human correction. The guard started training, and months later he applied for a new role where he worked with at-risk youth, teaching them conflict resolution. The change didn't make headlines like a scandal would have, but it changed a life. The point is not that Malik didn't have the power to annihilate someone who hurt him. The point is that choosing not to do that, choosing instead to set an example, to force institutions to change, to teach a man how to be better, can do something more. It can multiply the lesson. Destroying one man would have given a momentary thrill. Reshaping a system, training a heart, offering a path from shame to repair, that's long-term. People on the internet argued about it for days. Some said Malik should have crushed the guard. Some said he was naive. Some said the guard got off easy. But the people who brought their kids into the boutique afterward, who watched the video and said, "I'll teach my child differently," those are the quiet victories. The stories of the guard working with kids, of the manager changing hiring policies, of the program that reduced similar incidents. Those are the results. At the end of the day, Malik walked on, not because he was powerless, but because he had the power to choose. He chose a harder path, to set an example that couldn't be erased with money, to make his reaction the lesson, not the revenge. And sometimes that's exactly the kind of power the world needs, the kind that refuses to answer hate with more hate, and instead turns a moment of humiliation into a chance for people to grow, to learn, to see each other as more than assumptions. People still talk about that video months later. They talk about the guard's apology, the store's new policies, the training class in the community center, the kids who learned how not to judge a person by their shoes. Malik's name got mentioned in articles, sure, but his point wasn't to be famous. His point was to be effective. He had the reach to obliterate reputations, to make lives difficult, to be cruel. He chose not to. That choice, quiet, intentional, almost invisible, remade the story. It's the kind of change headlines don't always capture, but the kind that lasts. If someone asks why he didn't destroy the guard, you can say this: because power without purpose is violence. Because letting anger become the lesson only spreads the wound. Because the person who can break a man with a phone call is the one who must also carry the responsibility to heal what his silence allowed to be hurt. That's the example Malik set, and sometimes a single example is louder than 1,000 punishments.